Looks like we're on air finally. Testing some new equipment here to see if I can have a more stable stream. So let's take a look. I'm going to do an audio test really quick. That seems fine. Cool. All right, well, welcome back to whatever this is. Made some big progress last time. We actually finished the Sunday strip that I was working on. Let me go ahead and pull that up here, just to kind of review where we came from and also get my bearings. So this was the final result after bringing stuff into Illustrator and after getting our word bubbles and narration and everything fixed and in place. You can see that we've exported at a pretty high resolution, so I can zoom in pretty far before things start pixelating. Granted, this is a vector source file, so if I need to change anything or if I need to enlarge, I can do so pretty much infinitely in terms of scale. But pretty satisfied with how everything turned out. We've set up a few elements here that are going to come into play in the next few strips, like the duffel bag that I'm supposed to be taking home. And some new characters. We ended the scene on kind of a tried and true trick that I use, which is like, let's just duplicate the last frame in terms of people, characters, and props, and then merge everything into a single layer and turn it into a silhouette. So it adds a little bit of drama overall. You know, it kind of ends on an emotional note that way. And now what we're going to do is move to the next strip. Let's go take a look at our folder view here. So what we've got is, that was strip, what, 155? And we spent some time, you know, exporting all this, fixing some mistakes, and then getting stuff where it needs to be. I've already done some work out of sequence here on 157, 158, all the way to 161. I think I still need to, you know, fine tune a few things. Like, actually, that one is pretty much complete. So what we're going to see here overall is that I'm going to be finishing strip 156, which I was waiting on because I needed to build some props and figure out exactly how, you know, the duffel bag, the room at Mom's new care facility, what the people in the new facility looked like. I needed to finish all that first so that way I could plug those people in to 156, or at least, you know, just be consistent and keep the same characters going. There needs to be a linear flow to the story visually. So setting expectations and delivering on them. But since we've got, like, what, 6 strips that are almost complete here, I just have to finish this next one and do a little fine-tuning on the remaining 5, and then we'll be bringing all those into Illustrator one at a time and really quickly kind of going through them and finalizing them with word bubbles and finalizing an entire week's worth of comics, which means then I'll be moving on to the writing phase. So that means I'll have to go into Google Drive and start plotting out the text and the dialogue for the next 7 strips, and then illustrating those from there. A lot of times, I think people don't recommend, you know, if you're writing an entire comic book, for instance, you don't want to write in, you know, as you go. You want to plot out the entire thing, plot out your script, plot out your what the people are going to be doing, block out all the frames and everything. This is a little bit different. Hang on one second, let me get set up in here so I can answer stuff in the chat. it's a little different for me, and that's part of the beauty of the comic strip format and why I chose it, is that it has boiled down the process of writing into these very modular kind of stories. It takes this large narrative and then breaks it into these small bite-sized chunks. And the bite-sized chunks, they're easier for me to write, for one. But, I do have the entire script laid out just in bullet points. So then it's just a matter of moving to the next week, considering what I've already written, taking those bullet points, and then distilling each one of those into a single comic strip. And then once I finish a whole week, then I can move on from there. So it's interesting. It kind of like plays into the style of writing that I've become accustomed to these days. I used to be more of a writer and more of a blogger and stuff until like Facebook and Twitter became prevalent. And then suddenly I found myself writing less every day. And instead of like saving up all my creative energy for this one big piece of output, I found myself, it was more like leaving the faucet on trickle instead of saving up a whole bunch of water pressure and then, blasting everything out at once. So I don't know, my brain became very accustomed to writing these short form kind of things, and this format, the comic strip format, works very well for that. I don't have to have finished the entire thing before really going into the drawing phase. I can work as I go and just thinking a little bit ahead, like buffering my story as I go. So it's been working for me, and yeah, let's see how far we can take this. Hopefully all the way over the finish line, right? So the next strip involves me and Emily coming back after taking home this duffel bag full of stuff that my mom wanted us to take. And we bring her back her cigarettes plus another duffel bag and sort of like this reusable grocery bag full of things. Oh, and let me switch this too. This feels like it might be competing for bandwidth. Yeah, well, I'm having all kinds of Twitch errors right now. I think that might be better. Let's try that. Yeah, so we bring her back all of her goodies and have swapped duffel bags out. And then she is going to be handing us another duffel bag, or sorry, yeah, handing us a suitcase full of stuff to take home. And hold on a second. Now she's unpacking her stuff, opening up the carton of smokes, and she's going to light one up. And then where do we have to end on this? Emily saying, I saw some ashtrays outside. Steve saying, yeah, I think you have to smoke outside, Mom. And then she says, free country, I can do what I want. And then there will be a footnote at the bottom, so I have to leave room for some narration. Now, to make things a little easier on myself, I am going to repeat the body pose for Steve and Emily from frame 2 and move it into frame 3. However, the heads, are going to be a little bit different. So, here we're just going to be taking a shortcut to getting some work done quickly. One thing I just noticed, I did not color the t-shirt correctly here. So if I hold down, tap and hold, and then drag to sample this color, which you can do just by tapping on the color circle that we'll drag over, and then release, you can sample that color. I can go into this part of this layer, and yeah, see now it's not going to fill in very well. I could tap and hold there to fill in just the shirt, but I've left this gap right here. So let me fill that gap in. That will create an enclosed area that Adobe Draw will be able to fill with just a single color. Are there any other gaps? Yep, there's another one right there. And frankly, you know what? Those lines feel like they're a little too skinny to be serviceable. So let me bulk them up a little bit. I think that's fine. That gap is bothering me a bit there too. Maybe I should hide my sketch layer to make things easier to see for a moment. So I'm going to fill it with color, but see now, you have this problem that you've got some gaps around the edges. That's one flaw working with Adobe Draw. So one thing I can do to make things smoother is I'll create another layer underneath the drawing layer. And let me just delete. I'm going to erase the entire shirt color. Maybe do a little bit of correction here too. There's a couple little imperfections that I didn't notice until now. And some, I could probably afford to just leave alone. Because let's face it, we're dealing with some really tiny stuff that's not even going to be noticed, especially when printed. Go. Okay, so to fill in that color now in a way that isn't going to leave kind of these subtle gaps around the outside edge. See, now I'm like not bound by that hard delineation, where the outline is. Now I can sort of overlap when I draw my fill color here. Strangely, I feel like I'm still seeing kind of a weird edge here. That I can probably fix by, let's sample this outline color now and just tap and hold on it. Yeah, and that, it made it a little bit thicker, but I don't think it's affecting the drawing too badly. No, it's not adding a lot more weight, and it's taking care of that weird, crunchy edge. So if you couldn't see it, let me just hit the undo button. And maybe, it may not be too visible here, but you can see this aliasing, kind of this jagged, white, kind of ghostly line right around the outside edge. And then after filling that whole outline color again, that's thickened things up, and it's overlapping more. So what I think that is just some leftovers of the white color that was previously filling that shape. I'm doing a lot of corrective steps here to undo some poor practices when I initially applied the color and flattened the image. If I had filled the t-shirt with the right color first, I wouldn't have had to do that. But these are all great mistakes to make for the sake of learning, for showing other people the process. Okay, so I think we're ready to move on. I'm going to flatten this layer again. So now the shirt and the people are all together in one, and we're going to duplicate and move stuff over. I also have a layer here devoted to stuff. Let's just call it stuff. And let's duplicate said stuff layer and slide it on over. Now, if I want to move stuff in a single axis, in this case just horizontally, nice way to do that is just to scale the box like so, and then you're sure you're not moving it vertically at all. It looks like I had a little bit of a gap here, and if I want to be really OCD about it, which I do, I want to preserve that same gap. Now, granted, that's hard to do because it's such a small area, and if I start to move this box over, it's going to want to snap. You know, so there's a tolerance range there, but I can get over that by moving it twice. So now I've snapped it to its original size. Let's move it back so there's just that a little amount of gap there, and then blap. Shablap. Okay, so let's rename this one Stuff 3. Let's rename the other one Stuff 2. You know what? Forget it. Let's just do all stuff in one layer, I think. It's going to be the same in layer 4, so let's just do Stuff 4 at the same time. Now I'm not going to bother renaming that bottom layer because whenever you do merge stuff down, the layers will all take on the name of the bottom layer. So whatever I'm planning to merge, it's going to be just stuff because that's the bottom of those 3 layers. Okay. It looks like the box of smokes is on top of Mom. That does not actually, it is not actually the case because Mom just hasn't been filled in with color yet. So I'm going to drop the stuff layer's opacity down to 13 just so I can see what I'm doing. And then let's turn on our sketch layer again. And let's duplicate people here. And, you know, before I do that, we're getting a little lazy with our naming convention. You might notice there are layers here, say draw layer, draw layer, draw layer. Not really an issue right now, but if I were to export this into Adobe Illustrator now, all of the things that are, all the layers that have the same name, they're going to be merged into one layer. And you can undo that a little bit by, well, a little bit. You can undo it by, what is it called? You can twirl open, you can unnest the layer and go into the sub layers and find all the elements and pull them out into their own layers. It's a lot of work. There's no reason to do all that. So what I'm going to do is rename stuff now. This is going to be people 2. And it looks like I'm having some of that screen responsiveness issue again. I don't want to have to tap on things more than once to get them to register, man. Yep. Not good. Looks like it's time for the cleaning rag. When this happens, sometimes you're just a slob. And other times, you might need to reboot, or you might have too many apps open. And even other times, sometimes, you have to go back to the Apple Store and punch someone in the mouth. Unfortunately, that degree of violence is not recommended. After all, it's not their fault. Okay, so I've got this relatively clean. Ugh. Once again, my channel is becoming a sham wow infomercial. Let's see if that works. And also, let's unplug the iPad and then plug it back in, because sometimes that helps. Emily 1. Luggage has already been named. We'll do Mom 1 for this one. And our kitchen layer is named. This is named draw layer. Doesn't need to be renamed, but just for the heck of it, we'll call it sketch. Stuff. This would be mom 2. This one's going to be mom 3. And let's leave the head here alone because it's going to change in a minute. So let's duplicate people 2 because we're going to use a lot of this geometry for our people in the third panel. Now as far as alignment goes, how far was this sleeve from the door? All right, we got a little bit of room there, so that's probably good just like that. Now we can go about erasing the head. And get some of the neck in there too, or out of there as it were. And I'm going to erase all this white color too. Now let's drop the head, the new head in here. Move it over just a scooch, a scotch? A smidge. Feels a little hunched. That feels a little better, but am I too tall in this frame? Maybe, because yeah, in the first frame, I'm trying to be conscious of the distance between the top of the door frame and the head. So let's just do a makeshift ruler. I could do a normal ruler, but it's not going to stay in position relative to the artwork. Whoa, did I just undo on accident? Yeah, so, all right, here we go. So I just created a new layer and then created a box of fill color. See, if I align it to where the tip of the hair is touching, it feels like the head is a bit slumped. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say this probably isn't going to matter. So let's just go ahead and delete my makeshift ruler and fill in some of the discrepancies in these lines here so they feel like they're one continuous line. Same thing here. Connect the neck. That's pretty good. All right. I just moved the people layer underneath the head because I know it's going to adopt the name of the bottom layer, and it doesn't look like there's any visual difference between these things. And you know, now that I did that, it seems kind of silly because I already know I have to make a new layer underneath it to add my fill color. And I use usually a bright color temporarily when I do my initial fill pass, just so I can really see if there's like an error like that. If I go outside the lines, I'll be able to see it a lot easier. No, you know what? It actually brought out the fact that there's a little glitch here too. So, zapped that one. Oops, on the wrong layer. Let's finish our outline. Tap and hold, And now it looks like there's a couple little things I can clean up. I'm not sure what's happening with that gap. Is that part of the... Yeah, see, it's not... There's some white color there. Let me see if I can get... I'm zoomed in as close as I can be zoomed right now. Let me see if I can tap and hold and just erase that one little bit. No, I think it's a little bit too narrow to select. Yeah, we don't want that. Okay, well, let me just use the eraser and do that. And then retouch. It's a little tricky sometimes to keep the exact curve when you're dealing with a tapered brush. But, you know, do what you can. And then lastly, let's select that same white color again. Oh, you know what? I'm seeing a couple more little glitches. Like this one here. Tap and hold to remove. Try again. There it is. Yeah, seeing it? It took a little bite out of my line too. I mean, really, the tap and hold, it's good. It's like 98% effective, but there's just this little bit of cleanup you have to do sometimes. Most times. I'd say that's good enough. What about this one here? Now I'm seeing that kind of messy edge again on this. So if I tap and hold, come on, there it is. That cleans that up. There's a lot of messy edges here, and I think what that means is that I've taken a layer that had a white fill color and erased it, and now I'm paying the price for my laziness. Boy, there's a lot of little gaps here. So I don't, you know, some of this is unnecessary. I am filling in, I'm getting rid of little white artifacts that are not going to be visible anymore when I change the purple fill color to white. So, you know, maybe I should just stop doing that. Let's merge down. And that's looking okay, but now we have to make Emily looking back towards mom again. So what I'm going to do, I was really happy with her head shape here in panel 1. And so I want to duplicate this layer and use it as a guide. And as a matter of fact, wait a minute. I think I already did that. Let's look at, let's take a look at what's happening behind here. People 3. Yeah, so I've already, oh, no. That's the, that sketch has to do with her looking down at the suitcase. So yeah, I do want to duplicate layer 1, Emily 1. And let's move her over here. This is just for reference now, right? So let's move it up just under people 3. And let's just go ahead and erase most of it. The goal here is not to trace it, but just to use it as a reference. But I don't know. Let me see. Maybe maybe it will look good if I just do a head replace. So I don't think so. Not to, you know, she's smiling when she shouldn't be smiling in this frame. And there's just a lot of correction that I would need to do. Like for instance, let's see, let me get rid of this neckline here because her neck was leaning forward before. Yeah, this neckline has to go, this neckline has to go. Yeah, there's too much to correct. I would be better off just starting over with the head on this one. I'm already copying the body. So, you know, there's some of my gut feeling is saying, hey, you know, don't repeat too much, because if you have a high percentage of repeated poses and assets in a panel, it can start to feel a little like you're taking too many shortcuts. So let's use this just as a guide. Oh, and uh-oh, did I just erase part of the Steve face? Goodness, thank goodness for undo, right? It happened so long ago. There it is. Okay, let's get back in here. Now we know more of what we're going to do next. So let's just remove all this. And then let's put the head here for reference purposes where it feels right. I want to double check her height also. Feels like she got shorter. The top of her head is right at my hairline, whereas over here it's going above a little bit. Well, her neck feels a little long now. Well, you know what? Let's just see how we can see if it works. So let's turn off the sketch layer because this is doing us no favors now. And create another sketch layer. And let's drop that opacity a little bit more. And all we want here is just some rough outline. It's really the shape of the head that I'm interested in keeping. You know, I'm not the most consistent illustrator when it comes to facial features. So when I get it right, you know, I have a tendency to want to keep using that perfect outline as a template. Ooh, okay. Just have a little reference here for where the hair is going to go and eye position. Overall eye position. She always has one brow covered by the hair too, so that's something I try to preserve. So okay, let's delete this layer now. We won't need it anymore. And that's rough enough, but precise enough that I think I can keep the parts of it that I'm concerned about keeping while also having some freedom to get creative with this new face shape. So one trick I use when I'm using this tapered brush is, like just say I draw this line here, and so it's tapering off and becoming skinny right where it touches the ear. But really, you know, it's a continuous line. It should be a continuation of what's happening up here. So, but then, you know, I'm cutting through the ear, so I'd have to create a new layer, and that's kind of a pain. So one trick that I do with the tapered brush is if you go back a little bit, it, you know, like draw a line and then reverse it right at the end. Then it becomes more like a monodirectional taper. And so I like doing that sometimes in these kind of situations. Gives the feeling like the line's really going behind the rest of the artwork, even though it's not. Not bad. Ooh, my hand is getting a little tacky there. So yeah, that's feeling good to me. I like that. This is another good opportunity to use that method. Now, the signature look for this character, there's usually 2 hairlines like this, but we're getting so close to the edge with that second one. Does it even need it? I'd say for this panel, let's just forego the extra hairline. I don't think it's necessary. The more I look at it, though, it's starting to bother me how thick this outside edge is. So let me just sculpt it a little bit. But I run the risk of changing the head shape by doing that. I'm going to rotate the art because I can achieve a more natural feeling curve if I do it this way. Let's do that one more time. It's much easier to do this rounded thing if I have my art facing just the right way. Not bad. Okay, so now she just has to be looking at Mom with a slightly surprised or concerned look. Now if I give her a little bit more droop, this is a little touchy because if it fills in too much, then it feels like mascara, and I don't want to suddenly have Emily wearing what appears to be more makeup halfway through this comic. So, you know, a thin line here to show a little eyelid droop will work, because then it's more just an eyelid thing. Crap. Looks like once again, I got a little crazy with the eraser. But you know what? I've done so much work since... Oh my gosh. All right, well, I just undid my ability to undo, which sucks, because I was really happy with those eyes, and I spent all this unnecessary time demoing technique. No, it's not quite there. That'll do. Okay, so now I got to fix this. Yeah, I'm worried that if I undo too many times here, then I'm going to lose the hard work I did getting that shape, the head outline perfect. Is the neck too long? Let's merge these layers now. Actually, you know what? I feel like her lines need to be thickened up just a little bit too before we go farther with it. So make sure we have the right layer selected. Yeah, that feels better. Very small, but I can see it. All right, let's merge and then reverse. I would say that, like now that I'm really looking at it, her head seems to be leaning a little bit. There's like a tilt to it. So maybe my line wasn't as perfect as I thought. Let's sculpt it a little bit. Hopefully that's all it needs. It's just a little nudge. Here we go. Now I'm encountering that problem of the sweaty palm and the improper angle, the unnatural feeling angle. So, okay, it's not the most perfect curve here. There's kind of an angle here and sort of a flatness that happens, but you know, I'm okay with it. It's almost like the hair is doing something, you know, hair is acting like hair, whatever that means. I think if I fill this in, I'll thank myself later for it. Okay. Better. Better. And now, oh, we have to do the mouth. I can probably delete that extra sketch layer now. Oh, let's go back to our main layer. So it's just going to be a very simple, small mouth. That actually might be it. Yeah, I think that works. So this new layer I've created underneath, we're going to use that for coloring. So we're doing that now. I can already see some areas where I'll have to go back and erase and clean up. Tap and hold. Eraser time. That right there. That right there. These areas. Oops. This area. Okay, looking good. Fill it with white and merge. Let's call this People 3. Now, let's see, if I move the stuff layer forward, well, then it's going to be on top of Mom 3. So let's move Mom 3 and Mom 2. I like to keep things in order from bottom to top or top to bottom. I kind of go back and forth, but one thing's for sure. I can delete my sketch layer now entirely. One thing's for sure. Sometimes out of necessity, a character needs to be moved so it's in the front and not overlapping the wrong stuff or under or the stuff isn't overlapping the wrong people, whatever. So there's that. And, you know, let's just preview purposes, let's move that kitchen background up to 65% where I usually have it. That's pretty good. So I normally would worry that that this door color here is so close to the shirt color that it's going to compete in terms of brightness. But that's not going to be an issue, because what's going to happen is there will be a color layer here. Let's just see. I've never tried previewing it in Draw. Let's try this now. So if I make a square approximately the right size, let's just fill it with an approximation of the color I use in Illustrator. Maybe that? I guess I could go into Illustrator and sample that color. And then hold on. So the color usually for interiors is 35%. Now you'll see there is more separation going on here because the shirt is not transparent at all. So it should pop a little bit more. But you know, let's worry about this later once we get into Illustrator, because I feel like it might be the right move to change the door, the dark hallway color a little bit. Let's try this. It might be worth trying a whole new color on the hallway. Something like that. The way the shirt really stands out. But you know what? I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to wait. Why, you ask? Well, quite simply, let's go back to the computer here. Quite simply because when I did this, the door color was a certain color. Oh, that's the wrong door. There we go. The door color was a certain color here. And I'm worried that if I make it completely different, then I'm going to lose some continuity. And, you know, really, frankly, it's probably, I'm probably really overthinking that. But, you know what they say, well, some people say the devil's in the details. And other people say God is in the details. Let's just say the details often carry a lot more significance than you give them credit for. So let's do that, and also I'm gonna make the stuff layer invisible for just a second. Now I borrowed. Is it borrowing when you borrow art from yourself and then don't return it? Let's say I repurposed Mom's hand, cigarette, and face from another strip where I really liked how it came out. Do a little erasing there. So the plan is to reuse it here, and let's just do a quick sketch layer too. Say this is where the shoulder is going to be. Here's her arm. Here's her lower arm. So actually this arm should be higher. like so. That works. It'll work. I was worried I would have to rotate the hand or something, but you know, as long as I make the wrist line probably like that, I think it'll be okay. Let's go back to Mom 3. Let's double check that we're using solid black. There's been a few times now where I've used a color that wasn't the exact color black and didn't notice until I got into Illustrator. And then it was a matter of selecting that color and then going to select and then select same fill color so that it would look for any other instance of that color. So I could just globally recolor everything. Okay. Now, being that the original version of this head came from a much smaller panel, I've had to make some of the lines thinner, you know, like this. Just kind of thin them out a little bit because now we're dealing with a bigger representation of it. And the stroke widths should feel harmonious somewhat across these panels. But also there wasn't such a need for fine detail before. So I might actually benefit from adding some more hairlines here. And usually she has a little brow, some wrinkles in the brow. So let's add those. Does she look drastically different between panel 1 and panel 3? I mean, there's some difference there, all right. It's making me think I should go back and edit this a little bit. So let me just duplicate layer Mom 1. And let's go ahead and remove some features. And really, I don't think it's a huge change that has to happen. I think the nose shape could stand to be adjusted a little bit. And then it's just a repositioning of the eyes. And so now for the duplicate version of this layer, let's erase everything but the nose and eyes. Sometimes it takes a second for Illustrator to catch up when I've made a large change like that. I'm going to tap and hold on these white areas to get rid of all of it. And you can even see there's some imperfections here when you get zoomed in real close. As long as I'm in here, let's try to even those out. Okay, now let's just looking at the thumbnail here, it looks like there's some hidden artwork. Yep, there we go. Now the thumbnail is just that. So what I can do, that right there changes a lot already. Now let's deal with this nose. Yeah. Not sold on the nose. How's it compare? I mean, let's face it, overall, it doesn't have to be crazy accurate. This isn't portraiture. And I don't want to start overthinking it. I think, personally, that is going to be fine. It's good enough. But now, suddenly, one thing's bugging me about the mouth. And that is, whoops, let's do this. Because the mouth felt a little bit too bold. Okay. I'm fine with it. Merge and move on with your life. So I think Mom on panel 3 is basically ready for fill colors. Let's try flipping her to verify. Yeah, I think that's fine. Now I could go into more detail on the hands here, but again, let's just not go so deep that it becomes a time suck. I'll tell you one thing that really has come out of this process for me. You know, it's been many, many years since I've drawn as regularly as I'm doing now. And in fact, until I started this comic, I don't think I've drawn this frequently or consistently in my whole life. You know, in grade school, I was mostly drawing just to avoid listening to what my teachers were doing because I was bored out of my skull with ADD, and thankfully never medicated. And now that I'm like really an adult and more conscious of my inner mental processes and my inner dialogue, I've noticed there's interesting things that come out. This has been an introspective process. Like, my overall mental state one night might be completely different than the next day. So drawing something that, like the hands here, that might seem completely easy on one day, you know, on a different day with a completely different mood and different things that's happened, not even, you know, I don't think it has. Obviously, it would have something to do with, you know, if I had had some drinks or something, or smoked something, which I tend not to do lately. Obviously, those things will affect the mental space you're in when you're drawing, and might make something that seems like a simple task seem harder, or vice versa. But a lot of times, it doesn't have anything to do with that. It's just how tired, I guess, I am physically, even though mentally I don't recognize it. I've been listening to a lot of like meditation, not meditation podcasts, but people talking about introspection and exploring the inner mind. And there's something about the role of the observer, the Atman in your mind. It's the passenger on board this vessel that is sort of an unwitting, an unwitting co-pilot that you're having conversations with, or rather that it's having conversations with the body. You know, you're always talking to yourself in your head constantly, and if you haven't observed that, you maybe just haven't spent enough time with your thoughts. I feel that drawing is like an incredible tool for getting in touch with that inner voice. Yeah, it's like I'm seeing these major differences in my mental state that I'm normally not conscious of, because the co-pilot in here is focused on other things. You know, he's looking at the gauges and checking the maps, and he's not really aware of where where the pilot's headspace is, or you know how well he's solving problems today. And I don't know, that might sound kind of out of left field and esoteric, but it's been a really interesting tool for introspection, and for getting in touch with myself and my inner processes. So that's kind of cool. Just thought I'd share. So we're almost done here, right? We got one more panel to go, but for today, I think I need to call the stream quits, at least, because I do have some client stuff coming up that I have to deal with. One thing I can see already is that the stuff layer, like this bag, the way it sits on this counter, it's not going to work so well. The counter, it overlaps that black line too much, and I'll bet you it's in a different spot here. Yeah, and I even kind of screwed up the lines on the counter here. It looks like there's a white splotch of some kind. What is that? Is that part of the door? This really qualifies as something that I need to fix once I get an Illustrator. I'm not prepared to deal with it at this moment. But at least I can select and cut these pieces out. Ah, shoot. And you know what that means? That means I have actually trimmed off pieces of this knob here. You know what? Let's do it now. As long as we're here. I'm going to remove all of the kitchen here because it appears that the overlap was only visible in the first three. And here it's not, it doesn't exist. So what I can do is repeat that last instance and duplicate it a couple of times to get where I need to go. Now I have this one problem to solve. Once you've merged a few layers a few times, there tends to be a hidden artwork problem. Let me see if I can get at it. Not always easy. You have to zoom in sometimes. And I can see there's a line here that I need to kind of just keep tapping at it with the pen. I wish there was a simpler way to do this. Oh, and I can see from the thumbnail that something has shifted. So if I go to transform, yep. So I was able to knock it out for panel 1. Panel 2, not so much. So I'm just going to keep an eye on that thumbnail. And now it looked like it moved just a smidge. Yep. It didn't recenter. And that's a weird bug in this program, that it will, like I'll observe a change here, but it doesn't actually reflect the removal of the hidden artwork. This time it did. Okay. So let's duplicate once. Bring it over. Is it at 100%? No, let's do that first. Because if I merge things before I've done this, then they will say that they're 100%, but the individual components in the artwork will be at 80 or wherever they were left, and that's not ideal. Because then you really can't fix that until you get into Illustrator. So let's merge down. And now it looks like we've done a pretty good job repairing that. I'm a little off on my alignment though. You know what, let's just back. Let's undo 2 times. Yeah, see, I kind of screwed that up. Let me just delete, start that over. So duplicate this last group of 2, bring that over, bring this line over. Uh-oh. One more time. Bring that over, bring this over. Let's just say done so I don't accidentally nudge it again. That looks okay. So, okay. Merge down. 65%. And now let's look at our stuff layer. I know I said I was going to wait till I get into Illustrator to deal with this, but I got a few minutes to spare. So what if I did that? Oops. What if I do it on the right layer? Stuff. It's a little much. That's good. And then let's do this. Sometimes you have to whisper at your artwork. I'm going to use the tapered brush to fill in this little gap because it's the better choice. Oh geez, there's all kinds of imperfections here. Oof. I have opened a can of worms. Wow, what is happening? Oh, did I? Hold on. No, it's at 100%. That's strange. Well, look at all that. Yeah, now that I've noticed all this, I'm going to have to get rid of this stuff in panels 3 and 4 and then duplicate this so I can reapply it to layers 3 and 4. This was a little sloppy. See that? Because I'm at the minimum brush size, it's going to be almost impossible to thread that needle, so I will use the tapered brush. There we go. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. So, as I said earlier, let's kill the stuff here and here. And now we have to hunt for that invisible hidden art. Just a little bit here too. That's good. Whoops. Took a chunk out of our bag. Now, does that cover it? Yes, now we're good. Duplicate. That's right, we had this whole thing about trying to align the gap just right. Hey, that worked. Amazing. I don't know if I'll be able to do it that perfectly again. It's like a hole in one. Okay. 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 Now you're just acting like a jerk. Here we go. Let's see if it snaps perfect. Nope. It's a little off. Just eyeball it. That'll work. It nudged. Excuse me. It nudged a little bit, but I'm okay with it. Okay, so this is where I'm going to leave off for now. I got meetings and whatnot. So thanks for joining, as always, and I will see you on Wednesday, I think. I'm going to start trying to keep a more regular schedule. So Mondays and Wednesdays, 3 p.m.-ish, give or take. That's my target. That's what I'll be shooting for. Have a nice one. Talk to you later.